Well, hi, and welcome to the summer assignment for AP Biology. We're going to be looking at evolution in medicine and how evolution has challenged medicine to improve year after year. And by looking at medicine and some diseases that you may have some familiarity with, we can look at some of the genetic changes that take place and the new ways that doctors and scientists are looking at curing diseases and syndromes that we have never had an opportunity to do anything with before. So what we're looking at for what you need for evolution in medicine is a composition notebook, and that's what we're going to use during the school year. So if you can get out and buy one and start with that on this project, that would be great. Now, during the summer activity, you can do this on loose leaf. But a composition notebook obviously would be better. This way you don't have to staple anything in or tape it in when we're done with the project. We're going to do about one lesson a week, and there's multiple activities in most lessons. And each lesson can take between 1 and 2 hours. The activities may take a little bit less, so if you had a lesson with 2 activities, each one might take a half hour or something like that. Okay. So let's look at evolution in medicine and this summer activity. Well, during the activity, and even more importantly during the school year, I'm going to be doing a game with you where I'm going to insert different code words, or maybe I'll insert numbers that you'll have to add together, or puzzles that you'll have to solve, and you'll get extra credit for them. And for this particular PowerPoint, this first one, I've hidden some capital letters that I made sure were bold, and they're not used in a word, they're kind of standing off by themselves. And they're relatively easy to find this time. Sometimes my little puzzle's a little bit harder. But every student who finds all the letters, and there's 8 of them, will receive 3 points. And if you can make the correct word out of those 8 letters, you'll receive an additional 5 points that you'll be able to redeem during the school year when they will be much more meaningful to you. Now, I'll give you a hint, and I sometimes do and sometimes don't, but this word deals with the use of characteristics that were visible to people, doctors and scientists, to eliminate what they saw as defective genes in humans. During this time frame, they really didn't know much about genes, but they knew that the characteristics were something that was passed along generation to generation. It was a big topic in the science of genetics from the late 1800s to about 1945. And after 1945, this whole philosophy went into great disfavor. Okay, so there are a couple things you're going to learn in this lesson. First, how to express ideas about the source of genetic variation, and how to describe the role of evolution in antibiotic resistance, or just resistance in general. And then the concept that evolution and medicine are important in life, and I would hope that everybody has a sense of that, but by the time we complete this course, you will see some very specific diseases that scientists are working on that are making a big difference in people's lives. Well, let's talk about a couple of concepts. There are 4 of them that I'd like to go over with you that you've probably heard of, and maybe some of you remember really well, and some maybe not so well, but 4 concepts in biology that are going to be useful for this whole project. Well, first are Mendel's laws of inheritance, and there are 2 laws you might remember. One, you may or may not have heard of this name, the purity of gametes. And all this means is that the characteristics that are passed on to the offspring are determined by 2 factors, one from each parent. And you'll remember, the blue and the yellow or blue and white flowers, and you did little Punnett squares with them. And then there's the law of independent segregation, and this deals with more than one trait. So it might be blue, tall blue plants, and short yellow plants. And there would be 4 characteristics, and they would separate independently from each other. So you'd have a blue trait, a yellow trait, a tall trait, and a short trait. Okay. Then there's a second concept, and that deals with mutations. Mutations, mean change, and that's what the word means. And there are 4 types of mutations that occur, and we now know this from our study of genetics. Substitution, and that's those base pairs, remember adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, and of course uracil in RNA, exchanges for another pair. just a mistake in the order of things. And sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't. Insertion is the second type of mutation, and this is where extra base pairs are inserted. And again, sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't. Deletions, third type of mutation, is where a whole section of DNA is lost or deleted. And then frame shift, and this means the insertion or deletion of a codon. This is a start or a stop. Like a period at the end of a sentence is a stop. Well, if you had a saying like the fat cat sat, and we dropped the T, right, the codon, the T codon went away, we have a code that read something like HEF, ATC, ATS, AT, which would make no sense. So that's what frame shift is. Okay. So we take a look at the third concept, and that's natural selection versus adaptation. Well, natural selection is a random process that results in changes in organisms. And you probably remember Darwin and the finches, where birds had different kinds of finches. When times were tough, the birds that could crack open really hard seeds were successful and would reproduce, and birds with pointy beaks, not so good, and they did not survive. And natural selection all deals with things that are inheritable, so you can pass them along your offspring. Adaptations are features that are produced sometimes by natural selection that's good for an organism for some current function, and it provides some improved function, but it's different than natural selection, which is passed along generation to generation and is an advantage. Okay, the last concept is evolution versus common ancestry, and there's a lot of confusion about this. Well, to quote Darwin, evolution is descent with modification. This means that every organism's offspring, because they are combined with different characteristics on the mother and the father, make one organism sometimes more successful than another. They can survive better, they can survive and reproduce, and live longer. Well, sometimes lineages evolve and split, right? All those mutations, right, and those modifications that occur make organisms entirely different from some common organism. And scientists can construct that evolutionary relationship, and we use tree and other diagrams to help us understand the relationship of organisms. But it really is intended to show, a lot of people think, well, yeah, we're just the next higher level of chimpanzee or monkey or something, or ape. And that's not true. The apes just went a different direction. The mutations that took place in their genetic history made them different than humans that developed along a different path. Okay, so this is the activity we're going to do. It's called Outbreak. And at the end of this, you're going to read an article, information about MRSA and the genetic, and just exactly what MRSA is. Going to look at the bacteria, and we're going to look at why bacteria change and how they change. And there's a couple of stories that were in the newspaper that you can read about MRSA. One fairly local in Osceola County, 18-year-old in Liberty High School, came down with MRSA, and by the time they figured out that he was resistant to all these medicines that they were giving him, poor kid died. A couple years later, 3 more kids from exactly the same high school came down with exactly the same problem. All of them survived, but 2 of them were very close to death, and you can read kind of those stories. There's other stories about MRSA all over the place. If you went online and clicked in MRSA, MRSA, which means methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus. And staphylococcus aureus is a type of bacteria, and very common. And but some of them are just genetically resistant to methicillin, and you would know methicillin as amoxicillin, that pink stuff maybe your brothers and sisters had to take when they had ear infections and those kinds of things. Okay, so your assignment at the end of reading this is just to complete a 2-question worksheet. And this worksheet is not a test, right? It's not a test. So you're just going to read the information that's on the first page, and then answer those 2 questions in your own words. You don't need to do any research. In fact, I really don't want you to do any research. I'm looking to find a starting point for our next activity based on what you all remember from biology. So, if you go do a whole lot of research and you turn in this kind of perfect concept paper and all that, then I'm going to think that you have this built-in knowledge from biology, and then we'll be talking at a higher level than what we might want to do. Now, you can discuss this in your group, and I hope everybody has formed a group, but if not, have time to form groups. Do it online. Through Edmodo, just contact your buddies, send them a little note, say you want to be part of my group or not, and away you go. So you can work in your group, you can discuss in your group, but everyone needs to submit their own answers in their own words. Now, the way you submit things to me in Edmodo is you're going to download this assignment. Now, you could just type the questions on a new Word document, but it's easy to download it and save it as a Word document, and then answer the questions. And it'd be great if you used a different color. The questions are going to all be in black and white. So if you answer them in red or dark blue or purple, something that would make it easy for me to see the answers. And then you're going to go back and you're going to upload the assignment to me. So you're just going to click back on that assignment, you're going to upload it and send it directly to me. Don't send it to the whole class. And that's what we're doing. So this activity should take you about 30 minutes. It probably will be not very much longer than just listening to what I did with the PowerPoint. So have a good time with this, and let's try and get it done by Friday. You'll see this, well, if you're watching this, you're seeing it on YouTube, if all goes well. Hope you're having a good start to your summer. We'll have about 10 more hours or so of work to do, maybe 12, and then we'll be finished. So thanks a lot, and let's have this all done by Friday if we can.